Okay, Jim, we arranged this appointment so that we can talk about the site that you've created and are creating, entitlementsdestroylives.com. And from the newcomer's perspective, what can you tell me about the site, why you've created it, and what you hope to accomplish once it goes full bore online?
Well, I created the site because I've had a long interest in entitlements and the harm that they do to people. And I thought maybe the website would be a good way to start letting people know that there is a dark side to entitlements. And you don't hear that talked about a lot, but there is. There's definitely a dark side. And the government plays a strong role in this by the fact that politicians and government employees have something to gain by keeping these programs going. The government employees manage to retain their jobs. Politicians manage to make people happy, thinking they're doing good for humankind. But the real problem comes in is what it does to people when you provide them with a way to live and a way to eat without them earning it themselves and without them having an opportunity to grow to higher levels of life attainment. And entitlements put you in a box and you're through if you allow yourself to be. You can't work, you can't become anything else. They have some educational programs, but they aren't presented in a way that leads to a job and lets people know that's better than the entitlement itself.
How do you define entitlements? Because I think it's a little confusing that when we talk about entitlement and reform, aren't the policymakers and politicians and activists bundling in paid-in entitlements such as Social Security and Medicare with giveaway entitlements such as what you're describing?
Sure. They use a broad brush to say that all of these are government entitlements. And I'm sure that you wouldn't want to think of your Social Security that you had paid into all your working years and you started to receive a return from it when you reach 66 or whatever the age happens to be at that time. You wouldn't want to think of that as a government giveaway to you because you've paid into it. You have earned that. If you had served in the military and had served long enough to receive a pension and started receiving that pension, you would certainly be very put out if someone told you that was a government handout. It's not. It's an earned pension. So those are earned entitlements, but if you're receiving unemployment or if you're receiving welfare or food stamps or subsidized housing or college subsidies while you're in college, those kinds of things are pretty much government handouts. Now, it may be in the government's best interest where subsidies for college are concerned to pass those out to try to educate the population to a higher level, but it's still a handout to the person who's receiving it. And if you get used to handouts, it's like if your parents support you long enough, it's difficult to go out on your own. And subsidies do, and handouts from the government do that same thing to people through the entitlement system.
Well, we're gonna be talking about the larger impact of entitlement, let's just say giveaway entitlement programs on society and on our economy and the increasing share that it's taken of the federal budget and how that we have to borrow money every day in order to support this welfare giveaway entitlement programs. But let's focus on the individual for now, on the individual person who is on entitlements. From basic reading of history, up until around 50 years ago, to be on an entitlement program was a source of not shame, but it certainly was not something that somebody wanted the general public to be aware of. It was something that they did everything to avoid being a burden on society. But over the last 50 years or so, there's been a shift in terms of the thinking that by virtue of the fact that you're alive and within American territory, you are entitled to a number of benefits, such as a home, a job, education, health care, whatever is defined as a necessity or a strong desire has become an obligation of the government, and it's no longer a symbol of embarrassment. What can you tell me about the shift in the mentality from your perspective that you've observed, and why do you feel this is so dangerous and destructive?
Well, I think there was a pride in self-reliance earlier in our history, and I think that government agencies have worked long and hard to knock down the stigma of not being able to be self-reliant. And maybe they had I'll attribute to them maybe a good motive when it started out, but it's one of those good things that's turned bad on us, because as you start to make it more acceptable not to be self-reliant, you make it more acceptable to be dependent. And dependent has negative connotations for an adult, because when you are dependent on someone, you are not doing those things that are necessary to enhance your own life. And you know, we've created a problem. We have now a large portion of our society who have been out of the workplace and out of the game of life long enough that they don't know how to enter the game of life. And government has done nothing to improve that. What they've actually done is borrowed more money from foreign governments in order to enhance their ability to keep handing these people money so that they can warehouse them almost. And it's a tragic thing. I hope that everyone that hears this and everyone that I ever talk to at least leaves thinking they need to escape the entitlement entanglement before they lose their will and ability to work.
Well, let me play devil's advocate for a moment, and let me suggest that I am a 19-year-old white single mother of two in the inner city who made mistakes in my life, and I am now on entitlements. I have my rent, my health care, my food all subsidized, and this may not be the life that I want, but I don't understand who you are to stand up and tell me that I should seek another life. You're a white guy who probably has had all the benefits handed to you in life, or you certainly have not had to work as hard as my minority friends who've been oppressed for hundreds of years, and you are part of the privileged society, the part of the 1% that the Occupy Wall Streeters talk about. So how do you respond to that? That who are you to be talking about what other people should do as if you were concerned about their dignity?
Well, I certainly am concerned about their dignity, or I wouldn't be taking the time to talk about it. I have other things I could do, but I certainly want to talk about it because I think that it's a disservice to people when we create in them the belief that they cannot handle their own life's affairs. The fact that you're a mother of two children means that during the course of your life you have had some situations that you've gotten into that have not been helpful in you managing your life from here on out. But that doesn't mean that's the end of it. I myself, when I was 16, created a child. Myself and my girlfriend got into some mischief and created a child, which meant that at 16 or at 17 years old, when the child was born, I had to have a way to support the child. And in those days, thank God, welfare was not an option for a 17-year-old boy with a pregnant girlfriend, but it was appropriate to marry that girl, which I did. And then I joined the Navy when I was just a few days into my 17th year, and I spent the next 13 years in the Navy tending to my family, raising my children, and advancing my life. I managed to get my high school diploma while I was in the Navy and take college courses, and when I got out of the Navy, I was in a very good position for the rest of my life.
But weren't you born into a situation that is very different than what many children are born into today? So many children today are born into poverty. They see nothing but poverty around them, and they're raised to believe that it's a very difficult world out there, and they may not have everything they need in order to survive. So if a politician comes along and says, well, look, you're having a hard time, part of the government's job is to help you, and if you elect me, I will help you.
I believe had that happened to me when I was a young man, it could have destroyed my life too. I was raised on a small rental farm. My father worked at the VA, and he was not a high-paid doctor. He was an occupational therapist, and I believe in those days he made $50 a week. My mother worked some part-time to help pay the bills. She worked as a waitress at a truck stop, and all of us worked on the little farm that we had and raised the food that we eat and so forth. I don't think that I was a child of privilege. I think that I was privileged to have a mother and father who were interested in ensuring that I got out into the world believing that I could do things and had self-esteem. And if you're a mother of two, the most important thing you can do to those children is give them initiative, self-respect, or respect for themselves, and self-reliance, because they need it in this world. And most young people like yourself have good educations at this point in time, and if you put it to work, you can find a way to get out of this entitlement entanglement yourself. There are government programs that could help you. I suggest you pursue them, and I suggest that you do everything in your power to get out of the entitlement situation.
What would you say if I just simply say, I don't know how to get out of it? Okay, for the moment I believe you. For the moment, okay, I will buy into that entitlements are no way to live. What do I do, and how will entitlements destroy lives help me?
Well, entitlements destroying lives won't necessarily help you, but what you need to sign on to is your own ability to help yourself. You have that. You are an intelligent person, and you have every reason to believe you can succeed. There are job training programs. There are employers that would love to hire someone who was willing to work. You need to manage the care of your children. You need to bring to bear the father of your children should be helping you support them. Whether you were able to continue in a marriage or a relationship or not, he has an obligation to help you support your children. And you need to start bringing all those things to bear, and you don't have to walk away from your entitlement program in one fell swoop, but you have to start walking in that direction.
And what role will your website play in helping someone like me and people like me, and maybe even a generation of people who believe that what's the big deal if I accept welfare entitlements? Well, why is this a problem? Why should I think differently of this than what I do right now? What role will entitlementsdestroylives.com play in helping to change that thinking?
Well, that's two questions. One, the website, as it grows, should have every available avenue that one would need so that they can escape the entitlements. If we don't have that, then we're going to be a failure. We need to expand and explore every opportunity to get people off of it. We need to try to bring government to the same thinking so that government uses every effort to get people off of it. And individuals themselves, what they need to do is start demanding that of their government. They need to not ask for an increase in their welfare check. They need to ask for an increase in opportunity to take their own life to the next level. We need to demand that of politicians. Don't be content to hear a politician tell you that he's going to provide more social programs. Ask him how he's going to provide more opportunities for a single mother with two children who is no longer in contact with the father to be able to work and manage her own life and educate her children.
But playing, or I wouldn't even say playing devil's advocate, but being the realist, aren't the governmental bureaucracies dependent on the ever-increasing size of the roles of entitlement recipients?
Yes, and that is one of the downsides. That's the drug that government takes, that they need more of to sustain their high. And we see that in the ballooning government expenditures every year. We see that in the fact that our government debt is soaring, and by the way, that debt is a part of your responsibility too, just like it is mine. Each time our government hands out money willy-nilly to sustain a program that they have thought was important to their re-election or to their sustaining their job in government, each time that happens, they create for us a liability that we're going to have trouble paying.
Then address something else then. If I am a poor person struggling to get by, and I have signed up for and am receiving welfare entitlements, and I look at this tape, I could very easily point to the big corporations of the world that have buddied up to government. I saw that just today GE filed a 50,000-page tax return, and on $14 billion of profits, they paid no taxes. And the Solyndras, who buddied up to the presidential administration and received nearly $600 million in loan guarantees, they go belly up, and we're on the hook for that. Why should I be so enthusiastic to give up my welfare entitlements if big corporations that are aligned with the government aren't willing to give up theirs? Aren't I a sucker for not giving up mine if they're not going to give up theirs?
Well, it's more complex than you've asked the question. The complexity here is that if General Electric had paid $1 billion in taxes, let's say, that may sound like a good thing, but where they would get that $1 billion is charging you more for every light bulb you bought, every appliance. It would still come out of your pocket, the individual. Corporations are a pass-through, and that's kind of the red herring that everybody throws in the box. Corporations such as the one that accepted the money to do research, that's a horse of a different color. That's true waste of taxpayer money. But when you talk about a functioning corporation paying taxes, it's coming out of your pocket anyway, so I don't want to get the two things confused. But you should want out of the entitlement situation because it's stunning your growth as an individual. It's going to reflect into your children. We're still talking about the fact that you're a single mother of two. This is your children you're talking about. These decisions that you make today will go through the rest of your life and through the rest of your children and their children's lives. Prosperity don't come in giant steps generally. It comes as a slow movement through generations. I am better off than my parents who were slightly better off than their parents. That's how these things grow. And you want your children to have an opportunity to have life better than you did. And the only way you can do that is by teaching them how to prosper in life, and that's not on an entitlement program.
Then it sounds to me that you are asking for two things. You're asking for me to want to get off of the entitlements that I'm on, and you're asking the government to help to provide a pathway for me to do that. But is it really, where am I going to get the help that I need in order to learn the skills necessary to get off of the welfare if, as you said, the government, its interests are exactly the opposite? Its interests are not to help me to get off of entitlements. Its interests are to persuade me to stay on and even get on more, to build its own bureaucracy and its own dependency base of people who will continue to vote for it. Because if I and people like I continue to decrease the rolls, then the demand is going to go down for these type things.
If I were in the position that you're in, I would first find a way that my children could be cared for while I obtained work. And through friends who are also in the same situation you're in and sharing babysitting duties, or one mother might tend to several different children and that person who would have a job would pay them some. Those are things that you need to get ironed out first. Some people are able to get relatives to step in and help, but once you do that, you have to go out in the world for what skills you know you have, and you have to market them. You have to dress as though you want the job that you're applying for. You have to be someone that when that employer sees you, they understand that you know what the job is that you're applying for and that you're prepared to handle it. Once you do that and get the first job, the rest of it comes easy. Businesses are really desperate for good employees who are going to create a profit for that business. And that's the mindset you have to have, that you want to go into a business and make that business better, and thereby you will then be rewarded. And you have a right to expect to be rewarded. Your children will see you going to work. They will see you able to provide for them better and provide for yourself better. Your self-esteem will rise. You will feel that. Your initiative will continue to grow. And many, many people have escaped the plight that we're talking about and have become very successful. That's what you need to try to do.
And what do you say to the person who says, well, Jim, I've never heard anyone say these things, but now that I think about it, I'm scared. I've never been on my own. I've never lived without some form of entitlement support.
Well, that's understandable. It's very understandable. I think that, and you probably experienced this when you left home. I'm not sure what the circumstances you're leaving home were, but mine weren't so pleasant. And when I left home at 16, I might add, I was scared to death. And at that time, you couldn't get a job at 16, you had to be 18. So as a young boy, I did something that I shouldn't have done. I tried to create documents so that I could get a job saying I was 18 years old. Business people, being pretty sharp then, called the school to check on when I had left school and how old I was, and found out I was lying. That's part of what led me into the military. It was because you couldn't get a job until you were 18. But you just have to keep knocking on doors. There is a way to survive. There is a way to do things, and you can't let something stop you. If you go out and apply for a job and they turn you down, that's just the place you check off of your list, and you keep going and you keep going. And fear is a normal part of changes in your life. Face it. Be strong.
You said something before we began this process about your observations of Bill Clinton going through Appalachia and talking to young people and telling them his perspectives on entitlements. And you had some very strong reaction to your observation and your advice for young people who may be subjected to that kind of persuasion. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I was raised on the eastern end of Appalachia in Virginia, and on a dirt road down the side of a mountain. And when Bill Clinton was on television and they were talking about his trip through West Virginia, this was in later years, I was obviously a grown man then, and they were talking about his trip through Appalachia and how he would stop on this dirt road and tell the children, don't worry, we're here to help you. We know that you can't make it. We know that y'all are living in poverty, but we're here to help. And I immediately went back to me walking along that dirt road and thinking what it would have been like if a big limousine had pulled up and the President of the United States had got out and told me that I was poor. I did not know that at that time. And had told me that I couldn't make it on my own and they were there to help me. I believe it would have destroyed my life. Because in those days, I didn't think I was poor. And I knew that I could make it. And if the President of the United States had said those words to me, I believe it would have destroyed my initiative. Now, that's a projection, true or false, who knows. But I believe that it would have had a huge impact on my belief and the spirit that I had to go provide for myself.
And if you were to leave the viewer of this video with one piece of advice, one item to think about as they go back to their lives, what would that be? What would you want people to take away from this video?
Set your goals and every day try to do a little something moving toward that goal. I don't expect you to be able to get off of your program tomorrow or the next day or the next day. But if you move a little bit each day, you'll find that your initiative grows, your self-respect grows, and you're going to feel like in very short order that there's no mountain too tall for you to climb, and that you are worthy, and that there are people who would like to employ you at much more than what you're receiving on the program that you're in, and something that you will know is yours, that you earn for yourself, and your children will sense that pride.
Thank you, Jim.